Good morning again. We are continuing and finishing up our series this morning called Make Room, and just really about how do we create space. And if you've been here for even just 2 weeks, you're probably tired of hearing me say, we can't make God move, but we can what? Make room for God, right? So we're not going to be able to convince Him in our prayers or by anything that we can do or say for God to do something. But we can create space in our lives for God to do some things. So we've been talking about how sometimes we just get so frustrated week after week after week and month after month and maybe even year after year of not feeling like God's in our life or God's not using us or He's not working in us or through us. And oftentimes we forget, well, maybe it's something about me, right? Maybe it's something that I've done. Maybe I'm not creating that space. Last week, if you weren't here last week, you missed out because we gave out money. No, seriously, we gave out money. We gave $10, and we kind of played a little trick on them since it was Halloween weekend. We stuck it under everybody's seats, and you got $10 to take home to be generous with. If you were here last week, I told you I was going to hold you accountable some, right? So raise your hand if you were here last week. All right. So you can look around. Some of you put your hands down real quick because maybe you didn't give your $10 away. But a part of giving you the $10, we talked about last week about how we wanted you to be generous in any way. Be creative and how you're generous. Because when we make room for generosity in our life and we plan to be generous, we can't be the opposite of generous, which is greedy and selfish, right? And somebody, I think, might have taken a picture of me with some crazy goggles on, the me goggles, and how ridiculous we look when we're greedy and we're selfish, right, to everybody else. And so this week, before we kind of move forward with our last week, I just kind of wanted to give us an opportunity to share a little bit about maybe some of the stories that happened to you. So think about it. I'll share one real quick. David's going to share one. But I want you all to, if you want to share your story of what happened, that would be awesome to kind of hear that. And it don't have to be anything super fancy or magnificent, but we're just wanting to hear those stories of generosity, right? The one that my week kind of got different than what I planned, right? And so we talked about planning to be generous. And so today's my wife's birthday. Kendra's celebrating her 21st birthday for several times over. And she's not in here. She's back there, so I can say that stuff, and hopefully she doesn't go listen to them online, right? Or I'd be in big trouble. But I took the girls out to go get a birthday present Friday, and man, that's hard. That's really hard to take kids out on your own. I don't do that much, especially a baby. But took them out. And we're running way behind, so we went through the McDonald's drive-thru, eating on our way to the mall to buy the gift. And I went to go pay with my card, and luckily in my wallet here, I had just stuck the $10, kind of folded it in. I didn't stick it all the way in my wallet because I was afraid I'd forget about it and spend it myself. So I saw it there. I'm like, I haven't done anything. It's Friday. I'm the pastor. I'm the one that got up here and preached about you all giving the $10. So I'm like, what did I do? What did I do? And it just clicked, and I looked in my rearview mirror, my side mirror, and I saw an older vehicle. And I'm like, this is perfect, right? It's not a nice Lexus or a nice vehicle that I'd feel really good about giving to somebody that has a poor vehicle, right? So I did that. I'm like, I want to pay for the guy behind me. And she goes, okay, it's $2. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. He should have bought like 8 Big Macs, but he didn't. I'm like, okay, well, just give the change to him. And JC was super observant, my 4-year-old. And she said, you're what, Dad? You're giving them money? And so I had a cool opportunity to kind of share what I was doing. And it was kind of a gut check. I'm like, well, maybe I'm not as generous as I should be if my 4-year-old that's like a genius, if she's not recognizing me do that. But that was kind of my story of how I didn't really make very good plans. My intentions were to make plans, and I didn't this week. But the guy's like hanging out half of his vehicle saying, thank you, and waving real big. And just the mindset. And I think he even paid some. So I think my generosity actually spurred him to be generous. So no telling how long down the line people kept paying for each other. and just that opportunity. So that was really neat and touching to me. David, do you have one you want to share?
What we did was Kevin gave us that $10, and when me and Jamie got home, we was like, what are we going to do with this? And she said, well, we'll buy more shoebox stuff to fill, and I thought, that's a good idea. So we'll put our $20 to have $10 together and get $20. And I was like, that sounds pretty cool. She goes, but the food pantry, she said, we was going to do those shoe boxes anyway. We'll do the food pantry. So we went she went and bought a bunch of stuff yesterday for the food pantry. And I didn't think anything of it. And we had our bless the day yesterday. And we went to the laundromat. And they were like, well, we didn't get any quarters, so I give somebody a 20. And I said, here, go get some quarters. So when I got back home, I went, I spent our $20 already. And she goes, I did too. I said, well, I guess we're supposed to spend a little more then, ain't we? And she goes, yes. And she said, we're blessed to be blessed. And so I'm going to let Amy tell about what we did at the laundromat. Amy, you need to use this so we can get on.
So as Amy goes to share, we also had, today's talking about make room for mission. And so yesterday, we made room, and we served people in the community. One of the things we did is we went to the Lisport and the Hawesville laundromats and just gave out some quarters and some laundry stuff. So, Amy, I'll kind of let you share that. That was one of our service things that we did.
One thing real quick, the $10. Nolan last week, he was in service. Well, he told Micah and Jason that he wanted to buy a new toy with his, but we talked to him, and he decided we do the shoe boxes anyways, but he was going to use his $10 himself to fill his box. Cool. So that's what he's going to do with his $10. We've not done it yet, but that's his intentions. And he reminded me this morning that we hadn't done that yet. Yesterday when we went to the laundromat, it was kind of disappointing. We decided yesterday morning that two groups would go. One would go to Lisport, one would go to Hawesville. Well, our group went to Hawesville. It was Keena and Jan and David and I and Tommy. And we went. We were there probably an hour and 15 minutes. Not a single soul came in. So the discussion was, what do we do? Well, we decided we would fill the machines with quarters. So we got all our quarters, filled all the machines. All the washers, all the dryers, bought laundry detergent, bought bags, laundry bags, Clorox, set cards out. That's all we knew to do. So then we, later on that evening, Kyle sent me a text, and he had seen it on Facebook. I don't know the person, wouldn't know her from Adam, have no idea. The message she had wrote on Facebook. She went to do their laundry. Sorry. She got there to do their laundry. The machines were full of quarters. So she didn't feel like they needed the quarters, but someone would. So after they washed their laundry, she replaced them for the next person who would need them. But in the meantime, she took their child. She had their little boy with them. She took their child and walked to the dollar store while their laundry was washing. They were having a toy drive at the dollar store. So because they had been blessed, she had their son pick out some toys for the toy drive to bless another child. And I thought that was really neat and important. How God had a plan even though there was no one in the laundromat yesterday morning. And it was kind of disappointing when we were there. But God had a plan for those quarters and what he was going to do with them.
Amen. Thank you, Amy, for sharing. That's just another example of how, our plans don't always line up with God's plans, right? But our intentions, God can use for good. And even though we set aside time, that group set aside time to go hang out and hopefully talk to people and build relationships with people, God took that and said, well, that's not really what I want to do with the Hawesville laundromat this morning. And he used them in a different way and in a powerful way. In a way, yet again, people passed on more generosity, right? Yes, because we also found out as a part of this is that Saturday morning is not when people go to laundromat. So if you need to go to laundromat, Saturday morning would be a good time to not be packed. They go on Sunday. So next time we go, we're going to go on Sundays and get hopefully to build relationships and meet people there. Did anybody else have a story they want to share about how things went as you were generous this week? I'll share one last one. I asked him if I could share it. My nephew Logan was at home, and they spent, I think it was Tuesday, him and his mom, my sister-in-law Andrea, were cleaning out the room, his bedroom, and going to put new floors down. And I don't think that's what a 13-year-old had in mind to do on his day off from school, right? And I don't even want to do that on my day off, and I'm an adult. And so Logan was helping Mom clean out the room, and like anybody would be when you're having to clean and do work, maybe your attitude's not in the greatest place. And Logan was kind of sharing that, and he's like, they ordered Galaxy, and he's like, I'm going to give the $10 to the guy that brings us the pizza. So they came out and they explained it to him, and the guy was all excited and said, thanks, man, and handed it to him. And I thought this was pretty awesome for a 13-year-old. Logan says to Andrea, man, that is cool, and or Kevin was right, and Andrea says, what about what? And Logan says that it does change your attitude. I kind of gave, and giving made me happy, even though I was kind of in a bad mood. It changed my attitude, and I think for so many times that's something. I mean, we don't even recognize often of the time, but Logan did. Logan's recognizing that. That giving is something that can be powerful, something that puts your heart in the right spot. And I think that's powerful. Well, this morning we're talking about mission. And so yesterday we did the same thing. We tried to be generous with our time and serve. So and several of us got out and we went to laundromats and went to the nursing home and we raked a yard. And so we were planning on raking several yards, but this yard had 51 bags. Yes, 51, not 15, 51 bags of leaves. And we're not talking about the bathroom bags, the Walmart sacks, okay? We're talking about 51 big bags of leaves. And what started out as a little project went into more. And but the cool thing was we didn't know if who even lived there. We just noticed a lot of leaves and we stopped. And it's somebody that could really use our help. So we're connecting even further, hopefully, with them and figuring out how we can meet their needs. So the lady in a wheelchair. And so how awesome is that we just, God directed that and said, stop here, and that's kind of where we did. But as we've talked about that, and it's become more and more aware Sunday, about today that God really was teaching me something, because I was aware this weekend that we didn't stop at that house by happen chance, right? But we can think of a lot of things just by happen chance. Like, for example, I have an awesome story that many of you have heard, but it never gets old, okay? Never gets old. When I was a teenager, we filled up water balloons one night. I had my driver's license, and we were cruising down in my awesome Toyota Corolla. Thanks, Mom and Dad. And we were cruising down. We had water balloons. We were going to go throw them at some other guys that were hanging out and stuff. Well, we had to go out to South part of the county to help to pick up a friend, and we said on the way out, or Kevin said on the way out, man, if we see a deer out here, because it was the middle of the night, I'm stopping and I'm chasing this deer and going to hit it with a water balloon. So just kind of sarcastically. And we didn't see one. We get up here by Bob's Garage right here on 60 after we've already picked up a friend heading back to Listport. What did we see? Yes, we saw a deer, folks. We saw a deer. And this is not by happen chance. This was divine intervention right here for my words to be fulfilled. We drove by. It was right on the curve, sitting right there on the edge, driving like 50, 55 probably around the curve. It's right there. I swerved because I thought it was going to jump out and kind of hit the brakes. I'm like, we're turning around. We're going to turn around and we're going to hit this deer. So one of my brothers and a friend of ours, we circled back around. 3 or 4 cars came by, and we circled back around. That deer was still there. And guess what we did with it? We hit it with water balloons. Well, my friends kind of stuck their heads out the window, and I was driving real slow, cruised up, tried to sneak up on it. Like apparently it was deaf and blind because it didn't do anything the past few times we drove by. So they stuck out and they launched one. One hit him in the neck, one hit him in the side. This deer, I mean, what does a deer think when you get hit by water balloons? I don't know, but it was very shocked. It stumbles down to the ground and kind of falls in the ditch and jumps and takes off. And I promise you, it took probably 5 years for people to believe us that we actually did that. And by the looks of some of your all's faces right now, you still don't believe me that it happened. But I promise it happened. Promise. And I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. And of course, that's a silly happen chance, right? And but just ironic that it happened. And we had water balloons, and I'd just been silly and had said that 30 minutes beforehand. But there's another happen chance. A friend of mine wanted to go on a double date. And I wasn't dating anybody at the time. And so my friend said, hey, you want to go on a double date? I'm like, yeah, but I don't have anybody to go on a double date with. You got to find a friend, find somebody to date, Bleckley. And so Bleckley finds Kendra. And that was how we first started dating. And Kendra might view things differently, but you know, she might more view it as like maybe I stalked her for the next week and that kind of thing. But it wasn't by happenstance, right, that Kevin was single and was going on a blind date with somebody I didn't know that Bleckley knew from college, and I didn't know him, right? A friend knew from college. So happenstance or divine appointments, right? Things that we think, wow, that's kind of ironic that happened. But more like divine appointments. And they can be big and small, can't they? They can be like a small conversation with somebody that looks down at the grocery store, or a nod and a smile at the gas pump, to something much, much greater than that. But those appointments can be very specific. How would you like to be that chance encounter for somebody else? What if you were that chance encounter, that divine appointment where you were able to do something powerful for them? You see, I think that's God's plan for us. I think Jesus' life took advantage of those exact moments. And as we look through the scriptures, we know that Jesus specifically took time for those people that came across his life and took those as divine appointments. Those happen chance moments God used in a powerful way. This morning we're going to look at John 14:12. It says this: very truly I tell you, whoever believes in me will do the works I have been doing, and they will do even greater things than these, because I am going to the Father. Jesus simply is telling us we're called to do the things that he's called to do. The definition of mission, I looked it up online. So if you look up anything online, it's true, right? So when I looked up the definition of mission, it says a specific task or a duty assigned to a person or a group of people. So when we talk this morning about making room for mission, what's our specific task? As we follow Christ, we try to live a life in relationship with Christ, what's our task? What's at hand for us? You know, in Luke 19:10, it's very specific about what Jesus' task is. For the Son of Man, Jesus, right, came to seek and to save the lost. So his purpose, he came to seek and save the lost. That was his mission. From the time he was born, that was his mission. Our mission as believers is to help God seek and save the lost, right? We're to be those people who help come alongside people. And so as we make room for mission, what does that look like? What does it look like to live with a mission, with a purpose? Because I can get caught up in my mundane day-to-day events and things that I don't expect to go on, and I can lose track of my purpose. I can get caught up in the emotions and the frustrations of life and lose track of my purpose in Jesus. I think there are two things this morning I just kind of want to share, because I think as we focus on this mission, we can really, really focus and allow God to use us to seek and save the lost. I think the first one is to expect divine appointments and then respond to those. Because I don't know about you, when I go to the grocery store, I'm thinking about what? Especially as a guy. I'm thinking about whatever's on my list, right? I'm not thinking about the people that I may cross paths with. Or when I'm at work and I'm thinking about teaching, okay, and I'm a teacher at Owensboro Middle School. When I think about that, like, I'm thinking about, okay, this is what I need to do right now at this moment. But as we expect divine appointments in Psalm 37:23, it says, the steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Maybe God has placed me here. What if we thought this? Maybe God has placed me here for a reason. Like maybe this morning, even like right now at this moment, in the people that you're sitting by or the people that you'll walk out past this morning, maybe there's a reason and a purpose for that goes beyond what I can see. See, when I think we realize that God sets up divine appointments in our lives, that puts people in our life that allows them to impact us and us impact them, that we have a greater purpose. But then not just to recognize those, but then to respond to those, right? See, there's a difference between saying, yeah, that needs to get done. That tree's falling down. It's going to fall on the house, and somebody better do something, right? Recognizing that, but then doing something about it, right? So there's also a respond to it. In James 1:22, it says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, but do what it says. I think as believers, if you've been a believer for very long, we love to read about what God says, right? We love to get together and make groups about it and talk about it. And there's this pastor, Francis Chan, who talks about this some. And he's like, what if I told my daughter, JC, go clean up your room? And she's like, okay, Dad, I will. And she comes back and she goes, you know what, Dad? I did some research all about cleaning up my room. I've read a lot of stuff about cleaning up a room, and there's all kinds of cool organization stuff that we could do, and this and that. I'm like, oh, good. So did you clean up your room? Well, not yet, right? Not yet. But, Dad, I got a group of friends that are going to come over, and we're going to huddle up, and we're going to talk about cleaning our rooms. Okay? That's kind of what we do as Christians, right? Sometimes we get caught up in, like, reading about what we're supposed to do, and maybe getting together and talking about what we're supposed to do on a Sunday or in a small group. But that's the extent of it. We don't ever really actually clean up our room. In James, I'll read it again. It says, do not merely listen to the word and so deceive yourselves, but do what it says. As you feel what God calling you and setting up these appointments in our life, it's not only important to expect it and recognize it, but we have to respond to those. And so what does that look like? I got an example of this. A couple weeks ago, fall break, my family, we went to Florida for fall break and had a blast. And it took way too long to get back with a 4-month-old and a 4-year-old, and exhausted Saturday. I'd made plans. A friend of mine that I'd known from when I lived in Louisville, he was planning a church. And so he was super supportive and always texting and talking to me as we planted this Revive Church. And so I'm like, I want to go support Derek because he's launching that Sunday after we got back. So I was exhausted, but I'd made plans. I'm like, no, I need to do this. Derek's supporting me. I want to be there to support him. And so I just really felt like God wanted me to be there. So I went, and but that morning I'm waking up to get ready because it's a little bit of a drive, and they're an hour ahead, so I needed to get there a little sooner. And so I get a text from Justin Walker, and he's preaching here at this Sunday that I'm going to be gone. And he's like, man, I'm sick as a dog. I don't know what to do. Can you cover for me? I'm like, I've already made plans to go somewhere else. Like, I really feel like God's calling me. Where's my appointment at? Where's my divine appointment? I think I'm supposed to be there, but am I going to be here? And so I said, okay, well, and I felt horrible, but I texted him and said, see if you can find maybe David or Rick, because they've preached here some. Maybe they can do it. And David's like, man, I'm already on it. I got something. I'm ready to do it. I'm like, okay. I feel horrible, but I'm gonna stick to my plan. So I get up there, and I'm there, and I'm getting to see old friends and hang out and having a good time. I'm thinking about church starting here, and hoping David's not super mad at me for pushing it off on him. And So we go about, and they have pizza afterwards to kind of hang out and do fellowship with one another, to get to know each other. And as they do that, I've noticed a guy that was kind of standing off by himself. And I noticed a lady kind of standing over there too, but they weren't talking. I'm like, my radar went off. Nobody's talking to them. They're not interacting with anybody. This is their first time here. Maybe first time in a long time in church even. So my thought was, well, I'm at least going to just hang out for a second and talk to them. So I grabbed pizza. And honestly, my thought was, one of them is Middle Eastern, and I knew he's probably had an accent. And so I knew it would probably be a hard conversation to carry. So I stood next to him but looked at the lady, trying to carry a conversation on, but trying to include him, but afraid that I couldn't carry a very good conversation on with him. That's just honestly where I was at. So I said something about how awesome of a day it was because we were eating outside, and she kind of like didn't even want to look at me. And she kind of said, yeah, uh-huh, and like I think I freaked her out. I mean, I took a shower. I probably had a beard on, but I mean, I didn't have no crazy look at her. I was just casual conversation about the weather, right? But she didn't really want any part of it. So I was kind of struck back by it. But the guy next to me talked about it. And he's like, I'm new in town. I lived in California. What's the winters like? And we just talked and talked and talked. And he's like, my visa doesn't allow me to work in the States yet. So we're really scraping by. Do you have any resources? And I'm like, I'm not even from here anymore. I'm just helping a friend out. So we talked a little more. I said, why don't you come meet the pastor and let me introduce you to the pastor? And I'm sure he has some resources and some connections that can help you out. Trying to help him out just so he can get by. Maybe they can help out with the food pantry there to make sure they have food and those kind of things. And my friend Derek texted me. He's like, on the way home, he's like, thanks so much for connecting with him. You're awesome at seeing needs and this and that. He's really good at building me up, so I text him all the time. But later that week, hey, you got to find it when you need it, right? Later that week, something that I just kind of didn't even think much of. I didn't think of it as a divine appointment. I thought of, man, I want these people to feel welcome. And Derek was talking to somebody else, so I need to find something to do while he's talking to somebody else before I say goodbye. And he texted me back that Narish is his name, accepted Jesus that week. Right? Divine appointment. What do you do? How do you respond? This has nothing to do with Kevin, right? Because Kevin was trying to screw that up all the way through, right? Right? I wasn't even prepared to talk to him. I was just trying to make him feel a little bit welcome by standing next to him. Divine appointments. Because it can change somebody's life. It changed Narish's eternity when we look at that. And that was simply, I didn't want to stand by myself and not talk to somebody while I ate my piece of pizza waiting on Derek. How do you look at those? What if people you have in class, or you see in the hallways, or maybe a teacher that you go by? Maybe it's more than about just going to school, right? When we're in school, when we're in college, we have a focus, right? I'm just here to get my education and get on with my life. But maybe God's got a bigger plan than that. Or maybe your work. Maybe no matter where you work at, maybe there's a relationship there that God's trying to build and set up and use you in. Or maybe your neighbor. Or maybe at the grocery store. See, God, I don't think God necessarily is calling us to go and find a way to make more hours in the day. But there's a natural rhythm in our life that we carry of work and school and recreation and grocery store and gas station and shopping and working in our yards. There's a natural rhythm of people in our life. What are we doing when we come across them? Whether we see them once or whether we see them every day or whether we live with them. What are we doing? How are we taking those appointments? How can you be reminded that you're on a mission daily? What does that take for you? What kind of quote or scripture do you need to put up? Do you need to put up James 1:22? Do not merely listen to the word, but do it. You need to put that on your steering wheel or in a notebook or on the back of your cell phone or in the bathroom to start the day? How are you going to be reminded that God's given you a mission daily, and the people in your path each day might just be that divine intervention that they need? I think the second thing, as you expect those divine appointments and respond to it, is understanding this too. We get to experience God's complete and full provision. When we give, I shared last week about an opportunity Kendra and I had to kind of be selfish. And Kendra convinced me not to be, right, with our finances, as we weren't getting our paychecks the month before we could even make our first house payment several years ago, and how we didn't have to miss a payment or nobody had to give us money to make our payments because God provided for it, because we were in tune with what God wanted us to do at that moment. Now, this isn't about Kevin, of course, doing the right thing, because I don't. Many times I don't. But I can tell you that when I have expected God to do something in my life and to use me, God's provided for me, my needs. He's provided for my needs. So when we get on board with God's vision for our lives, we can count on His provision. So when we're on board with what God wants to do with us, we can count on Him providing for us. Luke 6:38. It says this, just exactly what I'm saying. Give, and it will be given to you. A good measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, will be poured into your lap. For the measure you use, it will be measured to you. When you make room for God, God's going to make room for you. When you make room to rest, God's going to make room for that, for you to have that rest and still get everything done. When you make room to be generous, God's going to make room for that generosity in your life. When you make room for mission, He's going to provide that for you. He's going to provide the time and your needs that you need. But I can also have experienced personally, when I've chosen to maybe be a little selfish and put my me goggles on, like we talked about last week, I've been kind of frustrated about where God's at in my life, where He's not at in my life. It works both ways there. See, the thing is we may try sometimes, but we can't outgive God. The more you give, the more God's going to give. The more you give, the more God's going to give. You can't outgive God. Have you ever thought this to yourself? Or maybe even said it out loud? Man, that's 2 hours I'm not going to have back in my life. Right? I didn't say it last night. Kendra and I did watch a movie. But there are many times that the movies she picks out, I think, man, those are 2 hours I just wasted in my life, right? Of course, she never says that when I pick out movies. No, I'm teasing. There are no regrets when we invest in what God's up to. We'll never regret it. I don't think anybody regretted yesterday giving up their time to serve. Right? Or I don't think anybody regretted giving the $10 away. Maybe it's in a relationship, maybe it's financially, but He'll provide when you respond to what He has. So think about this as we close. What if you were God's vehicle for a divine appointment? Watched a video this week on YouTube of this guy that's like a poet, and he's speaking the poet and doing his thing. Like, I wish I could get up here and do some of that kind of stuff for you guys. You all would be impressed. I'll just show videos from now on of it. But he talked about how our bodies, he was talking about race and how there's not a race and we're all one people and our bodies are just the vehicle we drive here. And our real selves, I'm not white, I'm not Hispanic, I'm not black, but I'm a person, I'm a soul. And so what he was talking about is how our vehicle in life is our body. And our soul is who we actually are. Not what we see right now here on earth, but this is just our body. So thinking about that vehicle. What if you were God's vehicle for a divine appointment? Today when you go to lunch. And that person that serves you or cleans you up your table or cooks your food or takes your card today as you pay? What if that was a divine appointment for their heart just to be softened enough for somebody else to come along and introduce Jesus to? What if we lived every day like that, with us being just a vehicle for God to use that could be guided and directed? What if all of us left here at Revive Church this morning and said, you know what, I'm going to pay attention to the encounters I have with others, and I'm going to let God use me for His mission to seek and save the lost. I'm going to let God use me for that. I'm not going to get it right all the time, but that's going to be my focus. I encourage you this morning to be present, to physically be present with what you're doing in life. Pay attention to how God's using you and the people that come in and out of your life for your good and for their good. But not just pay attention to it, but respond to what God's calling you to do. And as we pay attention and we respond, we realize that just like Logan's realized, is that we get more joy out of it than anybody could ever imagine. We're going to close out with prayer and worship for a little bit. And if you want prayer, we want to pray with you. You don't even have to tell us what it is. If you just want to go over there and pray by yourself, you can do that. We have a social media site called The City. It's just meant for our church, and we can share prayer requests. If you want Revive to be praying for what's on your heart, somebody maybe you or somebody in your life that needs prayer, post that up there. If you want to partner with us by giving, we have an offering jar over there that you can give to. But right now, I want you to just take time to respond to what God's doing in your life. What's He trying to tell you right now? How can you make that next step and respond to what He's telling you right now? Let's pray. God, I thank you for your word, but I thank you most of all that you call us to action. And this morning, I pray that whatever you're telling us in our hearts, God, that you'll just that we'll just be bold enough, even at this very moment, to respond to what you're saying. Help us to put action behind what you are teaching us. It's in your Son's name I pray.